So now talking about the birth stories, is there any one, maybe two that have really stood out to you that has kind of impacted you the most?
You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast, where you'll gain the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to erase the unknowns, feel in control, and have an even better birth, no matter how you deliver. My name is Liesl Teen, mom of two, practicing labor and delivery nurse, and your host. From over 8 years and counting of working at the bedside, I know that knowledge is the key to an even better birth. So tune in each week to learn about all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum from me, a labor and delivery nurse that's seen it all. And now let's get into this week's episode. This week on the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast, we are celebrating because it is our 200th episode. Can you even believe it? I cannot believe it. The very first episode of this podcast aired on September 17th, 2019. Yeah, pre-COVID. And I've been here with you guys every single Monday since. So to celebrate, I am giving away 5 $50 Amazon gift cards, and entry is super easy. All you have to do is leave a written review of the podcast, take a little screenshot of it, and then send it to podcast@mommylabornurse.com. That's it. Really, really easy. Entry closes on October 8th, 2023. We'll put the entry instructions in this week's episode description and on the show notes page for you too, just in case you need a little reminder and you don't want to hit play and, listen to it. It's written there too. And now about this week's episode. So since it's such a milestone, I thought it would be fun to take a little walk down memory lane and give you a little behind the scenes action insight into the podcast. My sister Jenna, you guys know her. If you guys are avid podcast listeners, she hasn't been on the podcast in a while, but she's been on a few episodes. She is joining me today, and we're going to talk all about some of my favorite episodes, most popular episodes, funniest episodes, most memorable episodes, just different stuff. It's going to be fun. So whenever you join the MLN Podcast community, I want you to know that I am so grateful you're here. Whether this is the first time you hit play on this podcast or you've been around since September 17th, 2019, I love getting to connect with you in this way every single week. And this show really would never be possible if it weren't for all of you. So now let's get into the show. Hi, Jenna.
Hey.
Welcome to the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast. It's been a hot minute since you've been on with me and you've been a guest, but can you tell everybody who you are real quick before we get started?
Sure. Hello, my name is Jenna. I am Liesl's sister, and I also work at Mommy Labor Nurse. I do some of the content creation, help with her on that sort of thing, customer support. I've been around the block around here, and I've been on a couple of episodes, but yes, it has been a while.
It has. Yeah, I know. Yeah. You guys, Mommy Labor Nurse would not be what Mommy Labor Nurse is without Jenna and all of my team members. But Jenna does a big bulk of what you guys see on social media and editing the reels and posting them. And just, it takes a village. And Jenna knows that firsthand, I'm sure.
Yes, for sure. Everybody helps out so much. It's not just me. And we get DMs sometimes like, oh, how do you do it all working as a nurse and a mom?
I don't.
I don't.
It's
that
not
would
just
be
me.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's get started. What do you want to ask me?
All right. So my first question for you is, what inspired you to start Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast, and how has it evolved since the very first episode? It's been a while.
It's been a while. I just saw the date when I read the intro off, and it was September 17th, 2019, which is pre-COVID. So that's a long time ago. If you think about how long COVID lasts, and it was before that. It was before I even found out I was pregnant with Ryland. Like, it was a couple months. I found out in November that year that I was pregnant with Ryland. So it's been a hot minute that the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast has been out there, and it's truly evolved for sure. If you go back to some early episodes, I'm not embarrassed of them or anything, but it just sounds a little different. I mean, it's, once you get better at something, it's only hopefully going to grow and, be better as time passes. So I've had a lot of different people on this podcast. We've heard a lot of different birth stories. I've talked about a lot of different topics. And really at the heart of it, the reason why I started the podcast was I remember I put out a poll on my story asking, should I start a YouTube channel or should I do a podcast? And it was like almost 50-50, but podcast was a little bit higher. And once I got to thinking about it, I was like, you know what? Podcasts, that sounds cool. Like it seems a little bit like easier per se than YouTube. Like there's no video element. It's just audio. And I really was just looking for a space to elaborate on some of these subjects that I have covered on Instagram. And hey, back then stories were only 15 seconds long. They're about a minute long now, but stories are only a certain length. So I could only really get into a certain subject so much, and even in a post, they limit your captions. Your attention on Instagram is short. So it's not like I can really educate you fully on a certain subject in the way that I could on a podcast.
Yeah, for sure. And I think podcasts also bring that personal element that you can't see on Instagram on your podcast. I mean, you've said from the beginning, my podcast is one of my favorite things to do at Mommy Labor Nurse because get down and personal with you guys and I can just talk and you guys love to listen. And so that's great.
Yeah, it absolutely is one of my favorite parts of Mommy Labor Nurse because I feel like I can kind of show you guys my personality. Not that I don't on Instagram, but it's it's a little bit, it's more long form. So I love it. I also really started it too, because I don't know if Jenna even remembers, but I used to have people come on to Instagram Live and share their birth stories on there. And so I was like, this is dumb. Like, why don't I just start a podcast and then they can be saved and I can have a space where people can share their birth story and then other people can listen to them. And it just, so I was like, this is going to happen. This just makes sense.
Can you take us through your podcast creation process a little bit? How do you choose topics? How do you find guests? And just basically, how do you prepare for each episode that you do?
So basically from start to finish is, we figure out kind of what the episode's going to be about, right? If it's just me, I just sit down and I record it kind of in one sitting. I never really go back to an episode, but I, just do it in one sitting on my computer in my little closet. And then send it to my other coworker and we have an editor who edits the episode together and then they, post it on our little platform, so you guys can listen to it. So it's a pretty straightforward process and it takes help. I used to do it all myself. And then Jenna was editing the episodes for a little while and she was my editor, but now we have like another editor that we use. But it's pretty easy. I don't prepare, I would say, as much for my own episodes. When I do solo episodes, I just kind of go off the cusp, But if I'm having a guest on, I definitely try and go in and just review my notes and see what the episode's going to be about. I go to their website if they have a website, or I read their bio or something, just so I'm not like, who are you again? I forgot who I booked or blah, blah, blah. Just like, who I know who you are. And then for birth stories, I really try not to read too much of the birth stories before I record with my guests, especially if they've sent a very long, submission or something. Sometimes you send short ones and I have to read it a little bit to kind of know what we're talking about. But I like to be surprised and I like to have genuine reactions and not really know what was coming. So I don't prepare for those, I guess, in the same way that I do for guest episodes.
Not sure what you should be learning and doing in each week of pregnancy to feel your best and get prepared for birth? I know that when you're pregnant, it can feel impossible to stay on top of all the new stuff going on with your body, your baby, and your bulging at the seams to-do list. That's why I created the free weekly pregnancy series. Sign up to get tips, advice, and resources tailored to your exact week of pregnancy sent straight to your inbox every week. Sign up at mommylabornurse.com/IamPregnant to get your first email today. That's all one word, mommylabornurse.com/IamPregnant. See you in your inbox real soon.
All right. Well, going off of some of the guests you've had, I wanted to talk a little bit about the expert interviews that you've done. And you've had some really cool expert interviewees on the podcast, but has there been like one or two that has really stood out to you that you just have loved interviewing?
Yeah, totally. Of course, I love everyone, right? Who's come on the podcast. I'm not going to ask you to come on the podcast unless I believe in your work and I think you have something to bring to my audience. But of course, there's some that stick out more than others. I've always loved my influencer friends who come on, like I mentioned, Mona and Dr. Reem, Asherina, like people who I have their phone number and we're in a similar space. I always enjoy those episodes because like I kind of know them and they're just more personal, right? But yeah, I would say one guest that really sticks out, and this is actually a really popular episode, is when I had Gail, Tully on from Spinning Babies, because I have been a Spinning Babies fan before Mommy Labor Nurse started. So when I got to talk to her, I think I said it in the episode, but if I didn't, I said it off camera or I said it off, off mic or whatever. But I was definitely fangirling when I was talking to Gail because she's so full of knowledge and oh my gosh. Yeah, that episode was great. She ended up, we actually recorded it in the same day, but she recorded 2 episodes. So she came back on the podcast a few weeks later and we released a second episode. But that first episode was amazing. It was just, called How to Have an Easier Birth with Gail Tully from Spinning Babies. And it was really cool to be, even though I wasn't in the same room with her, but like be in her presence after just fangirling over her and her work for so long. So yeah, that one definitely stuck out for me for sure.
Yeah, Gail is amazing. I went back and listened to the 2 podcast episodes and her voice is just so,
it's so
soothing and she's so knowledgeable. She just makes you feel really comfortable. So yeah, I recommend if you're pregnant, definitely listening to those episodes. And for anybody who wants to go back and listen, we'll try to mention the episode numbers. So the first one, part 1 is episode 17 and part 2 is episode 38. Okay, so now talking about the birth stories, is there any one, maybe 2 that have really stood out to you that has kind of impacted you the most?
Yes. So episode, it's 37 and it's called The Fight to Flourish. And there's a cool story behind this guest and her sharing her birth story. So we did a giveaway way back when, around Mother's Day. I think it was in that year, 2019, probably. I think it was before we even started the podcast. We gave like a gift away on Amazon and she was the winner of the gift. And the way that we had people submit entries was they had to email us like their birth story or their circumstance or something. And we, filtered through a bunch of them and then we just picked somebody who would win. So her story was just incredible. She had her daughter and her daughter ended up passing away. I think she was 5 months old. I can't exactly remember, but I think she was 5 months old. So she had a really rough time. And it was just really cool having her come back on the podcast and tell it from start to finish and tell me about the growth she's had since having that experience. Since then, she's had another baby. She was pregnant at the time. We were giving away to like a pregnant mom, but she was pregnant at the time with her second one. And yeah, it was just wild just hearing her. And it was really cool too, because I remember one thing she said was that when she won that giveaway, it was just like a launch to so many other things that she was able to do in her life, like in the birth space. And just, it was cool just to talk to her firsthand. Cause I remember, I don't know if you remember Jenna, you probably do, but like I called her because I had her phone number and I called her on the phone and Jenna took a video of me, but I called her and I was like, hey, this is Liesl from Mommy Labor Nurse. Like, I just want to let you know that you won our giveaway. Like, congratulations. I'm so excited for you. And she was like sobbing and it was just,
oh, I know.
It was just so great. So it was really cool having her come back on the podcast and just getting to talk to her for a longer amount of time and hearing her story. So yeah, Camilla's story definitely sticks out for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That was just such a beautiful story. And I've heard so many times from people who have gone on your podcast telling their birth story, traumatic or not, that it was just healing for them to talk it out. And I mean, that kind of goes back to like encouraging you to tell your birth story,
yes,
traumatic or not, because it can be very healing and help you work through some things. But yeah, hers was really great and impactful for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I mean, we're all about that here at Mommy Labor Nurse, is like share your story, even if it is traumatic, because it can be such a healing process. And I think that's another reason I started the podcast, is just to hold a space for those women who wanted to tell their stories. So it's unique and it's cool that I'm in this position, that I'm able to allow people to come and do that. So it's very, very, very cool. I do have one more before we move on to the next question. So another one that sticks out is an episode that just came out like a week or two ago. I can't remember. It's episode, you probably have the number, but
it's 196.
196. Okay. So it's 4 episodes ago. Okay. And this was my friend Krista's birth. Krista and I go way back. You'll hear in the episode, if you've listened to it already, you'll hear me talk about her. I just have had a relationship with her since I started Mommy Labor Nurse. She found me on Pinterest, and I've done a couple promotions, like sponsored type stuff, or just worked with the company that she works for in various ways. Like over the years, I went on like a little conference with her before COVID, pre-COVID, but I've met her in person, and I've just known her forever, and she's so sweet, and we're just so alike, and I just love her. So anyways, she got pregnant. She texted me and she was like, "Hey, I'm pregnant, yay, awesome, congratulations." And she took my course, and she ended up having, she wanted to go unmedicated, and she ended up having like a super empowering, amazing birth story that like I still get chills like thinking about hearing her tell it, because I've known her for so long, and it's so cool to be able to impact people in that way. And it reminded me a lot of my birth with Walter, my first one. And it was just really full circle. So yeah, hers definitely I'm going to be referring to probably in future episodes of like, if you want to go back and hear a really cool unmedicated birth story, go listen to 196.
I listened to it this morning, actually, and I can kind of relate in a way, because she was talking about how she's worked in the mom space for such a long time doing Mommy Knows Best. And I can't remember the other company she said she worked for, but yeah, I can relate to that in the fact of like me having a lot of knowledge kind of firsthand. And it was helpful for her during her pregnancy and just birth, like, oh, well, I kind of knew that this would happen. And I'm thinking that that's going to be very similar in the way of like kind of knowing what to expect, and just like knowing for such a long time, and oh my gosh, it's finally here, and like, this is it sort of thing. So
yeah.
All right. Next question is, what has been a funny memory you can remember while recording an episode?
One of them was ours. It was me and Jenna. I mean, I always like Jen and I coming on here because, we're best friends and we're sisters, and we just banter and we go back and forth and we just laugh at each other. So this one was 140, where we reacted to birth scenes in the media. And we watched, Rachel's birth when she gave birth on Friends. We watched Phoebe's birth and a couple other ones, but it was just so funny because I remember like the Fonzie comment came up at the end, remember, with Phoebe? And it was just fun to do something different and watch some birth videos. Like, again, I wish I could have put it on YouTube or something because it's visual, but you guys got to hear the episodes too in the background. So it was a lot of fun. It was just something different. Jen and I really, really enjoyed it. And it was just funny to hear these birth experiences and gosh, like how different they are than real life, right?
Oh yeah, definitely dramatized. But yeah, that was so fun. I love it. And Friends, especially, because I feel like there's so many different scenes of somebody giving birth. Rachel, Phoebe, once, twice, 3 times. And it was great.
All right. The sound of that heartbeat means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. This week, I have a DM from Instagram. She says, "This is so similar to my story." She was referring to like a slide that I posted, except I was planned epidural. I felt so prepared for the epidural. I talked my sister and husband through it ahead of time too, so that they would know what to expect and how to support. I ended up with a C-section after 4.5 hours of pushing. Wow. And felt like I knew what to expect and empowered to advocate for myself along the way. That is so awesome because that could have gone a much different way. There were several decision points where I felt informed and prepared to make a call and could really push for what I wanted, where otherwise I may have blindly done something I was uncomfortable with. Absolutely. I'm really happy with how everything went, which my doctor finds shocking, given all the variables of my experience. It's totally because I took this class and I was able to feel calm, prepared, informed, and in control of what I could do. Million-mile message just to say thanks. Oh, I love that little closer. Oh, love it. I love these DMs. If you guys take, one of my classes, please send me a DM or an email. We read all of these and they just warm my heart and help me, remember or just remind me that I'm really helping people out there, like individual people. I see individual people every week when I go into the hospital and help them through their birth. But, it humanizes the experience a lot more when I get personal messages from you guys. So thank you to all the messages that I get and emails. They fuel Mommy Labor Nurse. So if you want to have an even better birth, just like this mama, head on over to mommylabornurse.com/courses to learn more about our 3 online on-demand birth classes.
Alrighty, over 200 episodes, you've covered such a wide range of topics relating to pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum, all of that. So is there a particular episode that you would say that you're especially proud of doing?
Yes. And it is my friend Tiffany, who is also my coworker, who's also coworker at bedside. She doesn't work bedside anymore, but she is a big portion of the Mommy Labor Nurse team. And I had her come on the podcast and share both of her birth stories. And it was really cool because I was there for both of her births and I was there with her while she was going through her postpartum difficulties that she explained on the podcast. But I hadn't actually heard it from start to finish in that way. So it was very unique and cool to be on with one of my really good friends and, fellow Mommy Labor Nurse, or like she worked for Mommy Labor Nurse, but it was really neat to have her on and have her be able to tell her birth story. And I know she got a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment coming on and just sharing her story because she hadn't said it all at once. And she ended up, sharing it with our L&D Facebook page and sharing it with like a couple of other people. And it just, it was really cool having Tiffany on. But just that personal connection, it brings you a lot of fulfillment when you're able to do that for the people that you love in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually do remember getting a good amount of feedback after those birth stories came out about how much it helped other people to listen. Mm-hmm. I won't give too much away. It was episode 54 and 55, if you want to look back. And Tiffany is just a great storyteller in general. So it's like a really good, also easy to digest listen. So definitely recommend listening to hers.
Yeah, she's very, very, a very, very good storyteller. And she does not have any smidge of ADHD in her. So she stays very on topic. And she can go all over the place. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm very proud of my podcast style. But anyways, she's a very straightforward storyteller. And yes, it's very easy to listen to. And she just goes into a lot of detail and highly recommend those two as well.
Okay. This is a good one. So if a pregnant mom were to only listen to one episode, if you had to choose just one episode out of 200 to best help them prepare for birth, which one would it be?
Hands down, episode 106, Mindset Tips with Natalie Bacon. And I chose this one because mindset, I say it in my birth courses. I've said it on the podcast so many times. I've put it on Instagram so many times, but mindset, it's 90% mental, giving birth and wrapping your head around the experience, going unmedicated, or if you're getting an epidural, like mindset and shifting your mindset, using mindset tricks is so important in giving birth. So this one, it's actually a really, really popular episode too. It's like one of our most popular episodes that people have listened to. But yeah, Mindset Tips with Natalie Bacon, 106, definitely check it out. She does a fabulous job of just making you like get that switch. Like, oh, like, I don't know. I'm very much into mindset, so I understand all of that, but I'm looking at it through the lens of somebody who doesn't do a lot of mindset stuff. And when you start like shifting your mindset, it can be really uncomfortable and weird, but she does it in a really cool way in this episode. And it's not a super long episode, but it packs a lot of value. So yeah, go back 106.
Alrighty, looking ahead, what can your listeners expect from the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast in the future? Do you have any exciting plans that you hope to make a reality for this podcast?
I mean, we're going to keep doing the same thing because we've got it down pat and we're really good at it. But a couple things that I would like personally to do is I really, really want to, not that I feel like I'm a bad interviewer, but like I really want to hone my interview skills and just learn more about how to be like the best podcast interviewer that I can be. So maybe I'll share that process on the podcast. Do you guys want to like learn with me? Because I've never taken any sort of communication classes or anything like that. So I think it would be cool and worth my time to go out there and wherever they have those sort of resources, learn what it takes to be just a really good podcast interviewer. Because I feel like I'm pretty good without taking any classes, but hey, if there's some classes out there that can teach me some stuff to make it even better, I'm all about making stuff better, having even better births, right? So if I can have an even better podcast by training myself to be a better interviewer, I'm all about that. So that's definitely something that I'm going to tackle hopefully by the end of the year, but maybe it's a 2024, thing, but I'm definitely going to do some personal growth in the podcast, I would say. And yeah, keep doing the same stuff. I'm probably going to reach out more on Instagram because I wish I could talk to you guys and it was more like a social media kind of thing with the podcast, but it's not like I post something and then you can comment under it and I hear the feedback directly and all this. So I would love to incorporate the podcast a little bit more in Instagram and really hear from you guys and what style of episodes you like and just learn more about what you like and keep doing more of it. I would love to like decorate my little podcast space and put myself on camera, put it on YouTube so you guys can see me podcast and see me interview guests and stuff. But yeah, I think we do a pretty darn good job and I'm not expecting a whole lot of like, we're going to do this and this and this and this.
All right. That's all the questions I have for you. Thank you, Liesl, for answering all of these wonderful questions about the podcast. 200 down, maybe another 200 to go, maybe more. Right. Let's go. Yeah,
that's right. We're trying to hit 1,000 at some point.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, no, 200 episodes. We've had a lot of growth. We wouldn't be here without you guys. So I'm very grateful for the community and that you guys keep listening every week. And I'm always getting, new people to subscribe and like the podcast and share the podcast. And if you're like, I love this podcast and I want to do something to support, share it with one of your friends, give us a 5-star review, leave us a little comment on the Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to, because that helps us reach so many more moms who are pregnant so we can help them. So thank you guys. You guys help fuel the podcast and I'm so grateful for you. And yeah, here's to another 200 or however many.
Already feeling a little more confident about pregnancy, birth, and newborn life? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can continue to erase the unknowns and never miss an episode. And if you're looking for even more, Instagram is definitely where I hang out the most. Come join our community of more than 500,000 moms for birth education, tips, and solidarity. You can find me at mommy.labornurse. Check out today's show notes and a searchable library of every Mommy Labor Nurse podcast episode at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. And while you're there, be sure to head to the blog to learn about our online birth classes too. See you next week. And remember, you can have an even better birth no matter how you deliver.